What is the Oxford comma and why do people get so passionate about it? I have seen it on bumper stickers. I've seen it in people's dating profiles. The way that people feel about this grammatical pattern just bothers me. I think it's kind of used as an elitist tool to weed out people who aren't smart, when that really just weeds out a lot of people who are dyslexic or who haven't had a traditional education. But that's a topic for another day. What I want to talk about is why the Oxford comma is actually kind of dumb. But first, let's talk about what the Oxford comma is. In English, when you make a list of two objects, you separate them with and. A cat and a dog. But when you have more than two items, a cat, a dog, and a budgie, then you start to need to use commas. But the interesting thing is there's a debate on how many commas to use in this situation. It is perfectly correct to say a cat, comma, a dog, and a budgie. And it is also perfectly correct to say a cat, comma, a dog, comma, and a budgie. Using that second comma there, that's the Oxford comma. It is the optional comma in a list of more than two items. And the fact that a comma needs a name should tell you that it's pedantic. But it gets worse because people are very, very passionate about whether or not this comma should be used. Again, I have seen people put it on their dating profile that they are pro Oxford comma or anti Oxford comma. And the reason why this bothers me is because, like any rule in the English language, there are more exceptions to it than cases where it actually works. This language is just broken. I'm going to give you two sentences, one where the Oxford comma makes the sentence make more sense, and one where it makes it make less sense. Oxford comma is most important when you really need to delineate the last two items in a list. A waitress writes down that a guy ordered Coke, fries, chicken, and waffles. In that case, chicken and waffles can be one dish, or it could be two dishes. So maybe he ordered 3 dishes, or maybe he ordered 4. In that case, using the Oxford comma is pretty important. So it might seem like if you're cautious, just always use the Oxford comma. The problem with the Oxford comma is we also have this other use of commas called the parenthetical aside commas. That is when you have a sentence on one topic, but then suddenly you divert for a second and then return to the topic, and rather than use parentheses, or my favorite, the em dash, those are those long dashes, they're the length of 2 dashes, you can also use just commas, bracket that little aside with these commas. And where that gets dicey is when you say something like, the president, a felon, and the pope walk into a bar. Did 2 people walk in or 3? Because in that situation, the existence of the Oxford comma makes the number of people very vague. So ultimately, there's no point in being super passionate about the Oxford comma. Just like every other rule in the English language, you might as well just ignore it. This rant brought to you by elitist grammar Nazis everywhere. Please feel free to tag your elitist grammar Nazi friend in this video.